Recently, many people have transitioned to independent contracting, moving away from the typical 9 to 5. However, there are some industries where full-time work is still prevalent, including field engineering. For someone interested in becoming an independent field service engineer, how would you start? And what would your new lifestyle look like? And what does it really take to be your own boss in this industry? Hi, and welcome to TechWorks Talks. So I have the opportunity to sit down with one of our lovely and talented Source Techworks Field Engineers. Could you introduce yourself and maybe give a fun fact, how long you've been in field service?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for the opportunity, first and foremost. My name is Ana Izquierdo, and I have been in IT field work for about 13 years, on and off. I do have 2 degrees in IT. I have an Associates of Science in Computer Networking Systems and a Bachelor's in Science in Information Systems Security. And yeah, I've chosen to do freelance for the last 9 years steady, just because, there's a couple different reasons. One being a female in IT, it does get hard. You don't get necessarily recognized, even though you have the accolades to back it up. So going into freelance, it seems like you have more appreciation in the field.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And you can field your way around the industry as you would like to, not necessarily under anyone else.
Yes, yes.
So, could you tell me? I know you went into a little bit of your background, but how did you, I guess, kind of grow in your field service journey? How did you get into it? How did you grow? How did that work?
Awesome. Yeah. So initially, I did work for companies. I worked a 9 to 5 grind in IT, which anybody who's worked for an actual company in IT, IT is 24/7 by 365.
Mhm.
You are on call, and it goes all the way from tier one to NOC, from to network operating centers. If they need you in the middle of the night because the server goes down, you get called. So I went from that to talking to a couple of my cohorts at school, because I was in school at the time in the beginning of my journey. And they talked about, freelance IT work, that you didn't have to work for anybody. You could be your own boss, set your own schedule. And initially, 13 years ago, I was just like, no, I want to work for a company, work my way up. I have a lot of integrity in my work.
Mhm.
So I wanted to be able to grow with a company because I thought that was the path that I had to take.
Mhm.
Growing up, you have your parents telling you, you want to work hard, you want to work into a company and grow with a company. And so that was kind of instilled. But over the years, after going through a lot of just difficulty, lack of recognition, lack of growth, lack of being able to go, and work your way up in a company, no matter how much you succeed, potentially you end up with stops, with caps. And I didn't want that. I'm one that I always want to grow. And so about 9 years ago, I decided to look into it. We have apps, we have phones, we have a bunch of different resources at our fingertips. So I looked into that and found that there are a multitude of companies out there that are looking for really good technicians, and they want contractors. They don't necessarily want an employee 9 to 5 because they don't necessarily need an employee 9 to 5. So I looked into contract work. I did a couple of gigs, small gig work, going out to doing printers, HP printers, working from small HP printers to going to photo labs and photo lab printers. And you're talking about major equipment, bigger equipment for Walmart, for other companies, large retail companies. And just kind of worked my way through working with other techs, working with other companies, kind of dipping my toes into the water with other companies, doing small gigs here, and just showing them what my work ethic, what the integrity of my work that I have, that I put out, all of that working together with just steady workflow. I got to learn the companies, and those companies got to learn me. And it just kind of grew from there. And now I pretty much work full time, 5 days a week. I take weekends off, and I'm able to set my own schedule. And there's enough work out there that I am now skilled in that allows me to do that. So I definitely had to put my time and my efforts and my energy in the process. But now I have several companies that I work steady for.
Nice. That's awesome. That's an awesome path. You seem to take a lot of pride in your work. And I think that that has probably helped you immensely with just establishing a rapport with your customers.
Yeah, I think it's really important for anyone. And it doesn't just, it's not IT specific, but I think anyone in any field should have that integrity in their work. You get that job for a reason, you applied for a reason.
Mhm.
So it's just a matter of your work is a reflection of you when you're out in the field.
Right.
So that image that you want to put out should definitely be one of importance when it comes to your work and the ethics that you hold.
Yeah. And so working with Source Techworks, I know you've gone into your IT background. I know with us, you're starting into kind of the medical technology side. Was there a certain aha moment where you were just like, I can definitely work on medical equipment? Had you worked on it before? Or was it, I'll just try this out and see what happens?
Yeah, no. So I saw the opportunity going onto multiple platforms, seeing the opportunity was there. And I'm like, why not? I've been doing a lot of server work, printer work, break fix. I did a couple of seasons of actual IT customer service calls for companies. And I saw the opportunity and was like, that's growth. It's a new field that I did not have any experience in. I knew networking, I knew computer functionality, I knew, break fix, I knew a lot of tech. I've done a lot of things in the quote unquote PC world. But when I saw the opportunity, I'm like, carpe diem, seize the day. I'm going to go ahead and apply. I know I'm very confident in my technical skills and my technical ability, but as well as my customer service skills. And I knew when it came to medical field, it's a different breed. It's a different approach. You do have to be super professional. You're talking to people who have been in their fields for decades upon decades. So it's a matter of being that confident inside and seeing the opportunity and just taking it. You're never going to be able to grow unless you take the risks. So I went ahead and I applied, and it was a really solid risk. It's a really solid opportunity. So I was like, the risk is minimal. What's the worst they can say? No, we don't want you. So yeah, I just took the leap. And again, never had any experience on medical equipment. But once I got into training on that specific equipment, it was just flow. It was like, okay, so this is kind of the same thing that I've been doing, but there's more to it. It's complex, there's more science. And when you're in IT, science is everything. So I just felt like it was an amazing opportunity. And I'm so glad that I took the leap.
That's amazing. You kind of went into it a little bit, but exactly how different is the environment in IET versus medical, or is it different?
There's difference. And when it comes to just IT, like network servers, racks, doing that type of work where it's more IT based, you're working in IT departments, you're working with IT companies or IT staff for companies.
Mhm.
You guys can mingle. You guys know what's going on. You relate. You're both in the IT field. When you go into a medical environment, those doctors don't necessarily know the technical elements of the machine and how it works, but they know how to use it and they know how to read the scans, which you as an IT field worker don't know. So it's more of a complementary. They know something about the machine that you don't know, and you know something about the machine that they don't know. And when you go into IT, you guys basically know about the same thing, but you have the credentials to do the work. So it's a very different approach. I can say that honestly, with being in the medical environment now for about 7 or 8 months, I feel like it's a little more of a professional setting. You have to approach it very customer focused, with integrity, with honesty, and you have to be very aware of the image that you're putting out, because you're representing another company.
Mhm.
You're representing that company has selected you to go out and represent them. So you have to take that into mind. You have to keep that in mind. And with IT, not that you don't have to do the same, but it's a little bit more similar. So you have skills, they have skills, you both work in IT, and with the medical field, it's a way different approach.
That makes sense, especially like that you have to use that collaboration between, like you said, you know something that they don't know, they know something that
Right.
you don't know. So really using that to your advantage.
And it can get super nerve-wracking too as an IT field engineer when you walk into a medical setting and you're like, oh my God, I'm working with surgeons. Like these people hold hearts in their hands all day. And it's kind of like intimidating to a certain extent, but you're there to service them. You're there to help them. They can tell you, you can approach them with a conversation. They can tell you what is going on with the machine or what they are seeing. And then you can make your diagnosis with that and your technical troubleshooting of the machine. So it's very complimentary. They give you information and you just take that information and troubleshoot. Whereas in IT, they can basically tell you, well, this and this and this is wrong, and we just need this and this and this replaced.
Makes sense. And you kind of went into it, but what would you say are maybe a list or your hard list of pros and cons working with, I guess, working with equipment in general, independently versus like a full-time role? I know you mentioned like you're able to be your own boss, you're able to put your integrity into your field, but are there any more like hardcore pros and cons that you've learned along the way?
As far as pros and cons working in as an IT field engineer freelance compared to working at a 9 to 5, I can definitely say that pros, yes, you get to set your own schedules. You can work around what you already have going on with your family, with other priorities. Like I have a social media business also. So I'm able to work my social media while also scheduling around my meetings for that with IT work. That's a pro. Being able, for someone like me, I am very independent. So working by myself, I'm completely okay with that, completely comfortable with that. Kind of that mentality of, I just want to get it done. I want to get it done right. And if I have too many hands in the pot at the same time, I got to watch and see what everybody else is doing too. I'd rather just be the one that goes in there and gets it done. So that's a pro in my book. Not that teamwork isn't a part of that. It is, because there are times whenever I run into issues where I have no clue what's going on. And I have customer service or I have tech support that I can reach out to, and that's team collaboration. But being in the field and actually having one set of hands on a machine, to me is just, it's one person who takes responsibility from start to finish. It's not multiple people that are having to work on the same thing. So that's a pro. I also feel a lot more appreciated as a IT field freelance than in a company. And I think for some people that is super important. I think it should be important to everybody that you are recognized for your efforts if you go above and beyond, or if you do your job the way you were supposed to do your job. Being able to have somebody say, you know, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time doing that. And I get that more in the field, freelance, than I do working for a 9 to 5. So that's a pro. Now, cons. Honestly, the fieldwork itself, I don't see a lot of cons in the fieldwork. I think one of the cons that I would bring up is when you do IT fieldwork, you do get different work order kind of flow. So you have to be very, very cautious to make sure you get all of the information if it's not in that work order. So if you have questions about your work order, you need to reach out to that company. You need to let them know, hey, can I get this info and this before you go on site? So I have run into that with a couple companies that I've worked with. The work order format is not necessarily organized. So that's one of the cons. But it's not really a con with the work. It's more of a con on the organization of the way it flows and the way that things happen. But other than that, I don't see a lot of cons with field work freelance. I see a lot of cons with 9 to 5. So I saw a lot of cons when it came to just the overall treatment of workers in IT. When you work for a company, you kind of get lost in the flow of the mass amount of employees they have, especially if you work for a big company. So yeah, I feel that there's less cons in freelance than there is in 9 to 5.
Definitely. And I guess kind of to round out, what would you tell someone who maybe is entering the job market for the first time, or someone who's interested in becoming an independent field service engineer? What would your advice to them be, both technically and with your soft skills?
Yeah, so I think I have a long list. I've actually, since I've been doing this field work for the last 9 years, and I've reached out to a lot of the good, solid techs that I've worked with over the years. And I've told them, hey, you might want to consider looking into freelance. You are having a hard time at your 9 to 5. So, look at freelance opportunities. There's this opportunity, there's that opportunity. But I always, when it comes to somebody who has never been in the field before, who has never had any type of IT field work, there's a list of things. I'm like, make sure that you do have integrity of your work. Go in there saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm going to do it to the best of my skill set. And I'm going to make sure that this customer is happy, just happy with what you're doing. Happy because, believe it or not, before you get in there, they're not so happy. They are not. They are not happy their equipment's not working. They are not happy that this is affecting their work. So you have to go in very customer focused. Go in customer focused, have integrity in your work. Be aware of your SLAs or your service level agreements or the times that you have to be there. Be very aware of the details of your work, what you are supposed to be doing. If you have questions, ask before you go on site. Make sure you get everything you need before you head to front face that customer. Make sure you're prepared. And that means so many different things. Your appearance, your hygiene, your all of that, but also make sure you have the right tools. You have your right laptop. You have your phone charged. You have to be very detail oriented when it comes to being a freelance because you don't have a boss to tell you what you're supposed to do. You are your boss. So be your boss. Know what's going on, know how to keep flowing, and also get to know the companies you work for. Each single company has different requirements. Each company has different prerequisites. Each company has a different flow. Some companies have 24/7 opportunities where you can work at 2:00 in the morning, but not other companies do. So definitely get to know who you're working for and what you're doing. And if they're offering training, take it, expand your skill set. Don't just be like, I'm a one-trick pony, because that's not gonna get you a lot of opportunity in freelance. You got to be able to bend and sway. You got to be able to grow and expand. So if somebody is not ready for that type of commitment, because it takes a commitment. If they're not ready for that, then IT field work is definitely not for that. But if they are, and they're good workers and they're solid workers and they can have good time management skills, then you're definitely going to succeed in this particular field of work.
Very good advice. Yeah. So thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and speak with me. It's, again, obviously you take a lot of pride in your work. You have a breadth of experience, and I think a lot of people will be appreciative to hear that.
I appreciate the opportunity. I want to thank you for reaching out to me to give me this opportunity just to speak, because there's a lot of things we could go into. I could go on and on and on, but I honestly feel like the basics are where some techs in the field lack. And it's just the basic customer focus, having the basic integrity in what you do. And that's very important. So I do thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to just share that with everybody.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you want to learn more about field engineering with Source Techworks, visit sourcesupport.com/techworks. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Source Support Services for updates, clips, and more. Next time, we'll dive into how someone with IT skills can find themselves successful in the healthcare industry. So remember to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and most other places you get podcasts. And until next time, thank you for your support.